Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Dan, and Jonathan. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Monday evening. Apologies for no stream yesterday. Just some admin stuff got in the way that we weren't able to do a stream yesterday after our impressive, scrappy, drawn-out win against Wolverhampton Wanderers away from home at Molineux. It was one of those games that just you were kind of happy to get out of there with the 3 points, in my own opinion. We did play well, but I think everybody was expecting us to go in there and steamroll Wolves. Wolves are not a team that are going to be steamrolled by Manny this season. And that Chelsea game earlier in the season, I think, will be an enigma. I think Wolves, in the next 10 games, you'll find them sitting just on the outside of the top 10. They're a very, very good team, and I just think they've had a horrid run at the start of the season. But before we get into everything, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have all of your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. If you did miss out on the last thing that we uploaded a video of John Achterberg, the ex-LFC head goalkeeping coach. That was a very, very good interview that myself and Charlie done. A lot of interesting topics that were in that. Talked about how we nearly got Manuel Neuer when he was at Schalke. And how he believes that Caoimhín Kelleher is probably one of the best keepers in the league. Could easily start for anybody. Same with Alisson, obviously. We all know what he's like. But we'll get into a couple of the topics now. And the first one that we have is essentially just a bit of a review over the weekend and a bit of a look back, as Liverpool currently hold the best defensive record in the league by some margin. Liverpool have conceded 2 goals in the Premier League so far, one at home and obviously one away to Wolves at the weekend. And even the one away at Wolves at the weekend was very much of our own doing, if you even wanted to put that sort of a category on it. It was just a complete miscommunication between Alisson and Konate. But in saying that, the next closest team has conceded 5 goals, and that's Arsenal, who apparently their biggest strength is defense. And people will say, oh, maybe it's just the games. Not really. Ipswich have already shown against Villa, that was a top 4 team last season, that they're no slouches at home. We beat them 2-0 and kept a clean sheet. Then obviously it's not an easy task to go to Old Trafford and win 3-0. Spurs did it against 10 men. We did it against full 11. And it's always a different kind of game when it's Liverpool and Man United. And then we also had, obviously, Bournemouth can be a tricky game. And then we had the slip up against Forest, and then now we have the Wolves game. That was a scrappy win as well, and I think I'm missing one as well. Brentford is the other one. Then I'm missing too. But even if you look at the context of the games, it's not like we're beating Ipswich or Southampton 6 times to get to where we are at the moment. We've beaten decent teams to get here, and the likes of Arsenal have slipped up. The likes of City have slipped up. They've suffered injuries. Calafiori apparently has a knee injury, although he was in training today. So we'll see about the severity of that if he plays against PSG tomorrow. Tomorrow that they'll be playing. But I'll throw it over to my panel mates and I'll shut up for a little bit. Jonathan, I'll throw it over to yourself first. Are we getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, or has this change in system allowed Liverpool to become a bit of a defensive powerhouse or gain that defensive prowess back?
Yeah, it's very promising what we're watching. And the goal we conceded at Molineux, it's just embarrassing, to be honest. It shouldn't be a goal we are conceding. We should have had another clean sheet. But we look much more solid. Ibo got saved by the fact we got a penalty 2 minutes after we conceded. And I think Arne sums it up in the interview when he's asked who his man of the match was. He didn't think it was Ibu because it was a very bad slip and miscommunication between him and Ali. But I really think we are looking on a new Liverpool, maybe not so enjoyable and fun to watch. Like it was under the early days with Jürgen. But if we win the league with 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 victories, I can't be asked how we play, to be honest.
No, I'm the exact same. I give me a 1-0 victory and we park the bus for the rest of the season and we just win 1-0 again for the rest of the season. I could not care less. Nobody cares how you win the league after you win the league. Nobody gives a shit. Dan, something that myself and the other Dan were speaking about is how the difference in styles and sort of how like the attitude that people and fans currently have at the moment. We're set top of the league. It's not even October. This shouldn't be happening, apparently, considering Jurgen Klopp has left and Liverpool are meant to take steps back. And Arne Slot is jumping from the Eredivisie to the Premier League. And we've seen how that's gone for United with Eric Ten Hag, who had a much better team and a much better managerial career in the Eredivisie by comparison. Is it concerning for you that people are just kind of like, we're top of the league, it's okay? Or is it more people are just kind of waiting for the penny to drop?
I think there's a couple of things. I think first off, I think all of us, including Arne Slot, are a bit traumatized by the Nottingham Forest result. It's like Klopp when he first came in, he had that loss to Crystal Palace, that 1-2 loss against Alan Pardew's Palace, which is hilarious because we played Palace on Saturday, and everyone remembers last year when we played Palace at home, we lost 1-0, and that was kind of when everyone's legs had gone by that point. We had ran out of ideas. But that's a different Palace team than the one we have now. Palace have sold a decent amount of their good players as they still there, but Elise is obviously at Bayern Munich, and he was the one that everybody wanted. I think that's part of it. The other part is that everyone's narrative coming out of the summer was that Liverpool didn't do enough to strengthen the squad, and so those people are finding other things to complain about until there comes a bad result and say, oh, Szoboszlai's not good enough. We should have gotten Florian Wirtz, or we don't have enough midfielders. Why do they buy another midfielder? So McAllister can play the 10, or Gravenberch is not a 6, but Gravenberch is the 10, or Endo's not. Slop doesn't rate Endo. Where's our Martin Zubimendi? City are going to buy Martin Zubimendi. Go get Martin Zubimendi. Or they watch Andre Trindade, who had a very good game, in my opinion, I think, for Wolves, but also showed some of the limitations that he has, that he's very good at winning the ball and carrying the ball, but I thought his passing was a bit mid compared to what Gravenberch has shown us and what McAllister can do.
Yeah,
I think that everyone's just finding something to be unhappy about because everyone's preconceptions of what has happened before, and I think it's also really hard to get excited in September when when people already have their preconceptions of what's needed for the squad. I think as the season progresses and we start to see where Liverpool are going to finish up, I think it's much more reasonable to get excited. It's going to be our second Champions League game. Comment already mentioned the fact that Slot inherited a very good squad. He did inherit a very good squad, and that wasn't just fluff. This squad was pretty much rebuilt and essentially 2 summers, well, more or less 2 summer windows, even though you can argue that there's still players that need to be brought in and work to be done, that it's not perfect. And I agree with. I do think the change in system has helped, but I don't think it's a radical change. I just think that we've changed 1 or 2 players' roles and positions, and we've added a little bit more freedom for certain players as well. So we're much more compact now. We're much more both vertically compact from front line to back line, but we're much more narrow in our attack, like Klopp had us play way back in the day. And honestly, I just think we just have legs again. The thing about playing a counter pressing system, whether you're high possession or low possession, it doesn't matter. You need legs to cover that, and the more we have legs, the better it always looks. And when they don't have legs and we don't win our battles or win our challenges, we don't look as good. Slot said at the beginning of the game, the first game of the season against Ipswich, he said, don't talk about tactics if you don't win your duels. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it comes down to. It's not radically different than what we've done before. It's not even much different than what we did in 21-22 or even 2020-2021, what Klopp and Pep Linders were trying to do. It's just more of I would say it's more of rather than Klopp going back to basics, 4-3-3 pressing shape, it's very 4-2-4 out of possession, 4-4-2 out of possession. And then when you attack, it's very like 3-2-5, 2-3-5. It's very similar to what we've done in the past. Actually, at times it looks more of like I want to call it like a 2-3-1-3 at times. Like it takes on different shapes, and even giving it a name and a shape kind of belays the fluidity of it. But just small tweaks to how we do certain things, I think, has made us a much more steady unit. The only problem is that, well, what I think our problems are going to be going forward is Andy Robertson's legs and Dominic Szoboszlai's legs, because those two are kind of the things that are providing both the pressing and the width and the running on for Andy Robertson on the left wing, and for and Szoboszlai, his pressing and his movement and his screening is what is giving us that defensive cover in the middle.
Yeah, a lot of people are just not happy with how Szoboszlai has been this season, and I think that's down to suffering from success, similarly to how people have their gripe with Darwin Núñez, is that we see the player that's there, and it's the inconsistencies that are probably the frustrating side of it. Like this time last year, Szoboszlai, we all thought Szoboszlai was the next coming of Steven Gerrard. Genuinely, like, he can ping a pass, he can defend, he can run for days, and he can just absolutely fire a rocket in from 30 yards. And we're like, what have we just found here? Similarly with Darwin Núñez, like when he played us when he was with Benfica, he made Van Dijk look silly. He made Van Dijk look human. And then when he came with us, we seen glimpses.
Get out of this chat, Rigo. You're not welcome here. Don't give me this. Don't be talking about my boy like this.
It's one of them that it's like we've seen with Darwin Núñez in the first two seasons, like the sheer glimpses of utter brilliance that man has in his finishing and his goal scoring and his creativity. Like, he finished nearly on a 20-15 season last season, and people were still complaining it wasn't good enough. And I'm kind of like, I'm not sure what's going on here. I don't have any graphics. I'm afraid I didn't prepare any graphics for today's stream. But I make sure I'll have a load for you guys on Wednesday, because I'll be doing the post-game stream after our game against Bologna. But it's just it's concerning that way, because obviously you know the player that's there. You can see how good the player has been and can be. And it's just a frustration side of things because of the inconsistencies. I'll throw it to, like Rigo mentions here, like doing all the dirty work and still not fully there, but on the ball in attack just yet. Completely agree. It is what it is, but that's also going to be the same situation that might sting us in the ass a little bit. Although it hasn't so far, it's just one of them. This is another one as well. People are going to find a scapegoat. I've not been impressed with him this season. I know what he's doing. I know the role he's playing. It just seems to be he's making some silly decisions at the last second that is causing him to kind of go, yeah. And Rigo, the reason we are is because we've seen how far this can go, and it can come down to a point, and it has on numerous occasions with us. So we kind of need to nitpick, and for lack of a better term, it needs to be perfect. Now, this season I think might be different than other seasons, but Jonathan, I'll throw the question over to you. Are you worried about the lack of returns for Szoboszlai, or do you think he's playing his role as asked? As in, like, Slot is telling him, I want you to do this. The goals are going to come, but keep doing this.
Obviously, when we saw what he did at Leipzig, we all wanted the new Gerrard. We have to remember he's 23 years old.
Yeah.
24 this year. And he could have had the most disappointing with him is the lack of assists, I think. Because he's set in that 10 role. The goals will come, and I don't understand why I don't take more free kicks when Trent is not on the field, or just rotate between them. I'm not worried yet.
Yeah.
And
very early days.
And when Harvey is coming back, you could rotate them more. But I hope maybe next season is the last season we can be patient with him. If we're going to keep him onwards, then we have to actually see some progress. And as you said with Núñez as well, how many goals did he get last year? 15?
He had 18 goals and 13 assists in all competitions.
That would be very good if it wasn't for one man, and that's Erling Braut Haaland.
That's it. Like as you mentioned, like I think people are spoiled by the fact that we have a Salah and we had Mane and we had Firmino and we had a Ronaldo and a Messi and a Haaland, just robots that just scored goals for fun and broke records. And now a striker bagging just under 20 in a season is seen as a terrible season. Like
and Salah is bagging 15, 16 goals a season as well, and that's high for a right wing in his age. So,
it's just one of them. It's absolutely nuts. Like and I think the problem is that a lot of people will just want your striker in Nunes to just score goals, and I'm of the opposite opinion of that. Of if he ends the season, if there's 40 goals on offer, I'd rather him score 20 and assist 20 than score 40. That's the way that I view it, because if you have a striker that can score and assist like that, you have a very, very, very versatile player. Similarly with Szoboszlai, if he ends the season on 20 combined goal contributions, that'll be a fantastic season for him. 10 goals and 10 assists in all competitions. That'll be fantastic for your center attacking midfielder. It'd be brilliant. Dan, is there much worry for you in Szoboszlai's sort of dip in form? Like, look, we say dip in form. It's not a dip in form, but I'd say probably the better turn of phrase is lack of attacking returns for a 10, shall we say, is where he's playing.
No. Okay, so no, because if Szoboszlai takes the shot at United, he has a goal and an assist, and if that ball that he gets last night against Wolves like deflects any other way off his boot, or if it just hits Johnston and just goes underneath his legs, he's on 2 goals, 3 in all comps, and an assist. I think that he's, that'd be 7 games and 3 goals and 1 assist. That's perfectly good for a midfielder. I was thinking about this earlier today, so someone mentioned Federico Valverde. That's not a fair comparison in my mind, because Valverde started as a winger and then kind of got moved as an auxiliary right back, and then as a midfielder, and then as a defensive right back. His game has been retooled a bunch of times, both by Zinedine Zidane and by Carlo Ancelotti. He's been very James Milnered in a way, but 10 years before James Milner got James Milnered. And they're very different types of technical players. I think Szoboszlai's quality on the ball hasn't left him, but he's being asked to do things a little bit differently than how Leipzig did things. And honestly, as a 10, you have the license to lose the ball. That is kind of your job. It reminds me a lot of what Arsenal tried to do with Dani Ceballos back in the day when they had him as a 10 before they brought in someone like Martin Odegaard to run their 10. And I think we're seeing Szoboszlai kind of go through that phase of being someone who was a right winger / a 10, converted to an 8 last year by Jurgen Klopp, being very 4-3-3, right mid, right center mid, to now being a 10, essentially working as a second striker slash like screening midfielder. Sometimes drops as a 6, sometimes functions as an 8. And I think that it's perfectly fine for Szoboszlai to not be as sharp on the ball, considering he has played a lot of football this past summer going into this preseason. So he's had a much weirder season compared to some of our other players. But and I think also the reason why most people are expecting more from Szoboszlai is because of how well Ryan Gravenberch has done.
Yeah.
Which, I think we all called. And I think with Gravenberch, it was more he just hadn't had game time. For Szoboszlai, it's not that he didn't have game time. He had a lot of game time. And that can also work against you, where you play a lot of games, you don't get that freshness. And I actually think that's the big issue with the Harvey Elliott injury, is that if Harvey was here, we'd probably get a more fresh Dominic Szoboszlai. Would we get more, say, Man United performances, or even more Brentford performances, and less Nottingham Forest performances, which is not his fault, by the way. That is not Dominic Szoboszlai's fault. And I think that's also another reason people remember how bad that performance was. And it was bad, but he was one of many bad players that game. And that's where a lot of people's perception of Szoboszlai is as well. But, and I think it's also just because that, people already have their own preconceptions of what Liverpool should have done, should do, / can do from this past summer and going forward. But they don't need to buy a 6, in my opinion. They could buy a number 10 or another midfielder, but I don't think they need a number 6 because, we have the Lisan Al Gaib, Ryan Gravenberch himself.
Yeah, I think the midfield three we have now, Maka, Grav, and Subo, plays really well together.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind actually try Soboslai down at the McAllister role, or just to try him there. It could be coming from the deep and ping more balls out, or have that opportunity for a long shot.
I would really want Soboslai to play right wing in this system. Like if you played, say, Harvey Elliott as a 10, Soboslai on the right wing with either Nunez through the center and Diaz on the left, or Gakpo on the left. I'd really love to see that because you're essentially
benching
playing.
Salah.
Yeah, well, not benching Salah, but like if you're rotating Salah, like if you have to rotate your players, you could play 2-10, so 2 6s, 2 10s, essentially 2 forwards, but it's a bit asymmetrical. I would very much love to see that.
Yeah. I just want to go back to a little question here from Paul, because I was just doing the maths on it here. How many goals have we conceded this time last season? I can tell you the results and the goals. So this time last season, I'm going up to about the 8th of October. 9 goals, you reckon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. 9 goals not conceded. So last season, to start the season, first game was a draw against Chelsea, 1-1. Dress to match your wall is almost a floating head. Thanks, Rigo. Appreciate that. So last season started off with a 1-1 draw against Chelsea, then a 3-1 victory against Bournemouth, a 2-1 victory then against Newcastle, Darwin Núñez, thank you very much. A 3-0 victory over Aston Villa, 3-1 victory away to Wolves, and then a 3-1 victory at home to West Ham, and then a 2-1 loss to Tottenham in that famous game. So we have
7.
Yeah. So 2, 3. Yeah, 7. 7 goals conceded. So we've conceded 5 less goals, and so far this and we scored 1, 4, 6, 9. 1, 4, 6, 9. 1, 4, 6, 9, 12. And then we obviously had the one then against 3-1, 3-1. And then I'm looking at another 3. Yeah. We'd way less goals scored last season as well, being 3-1 FC. Yeah, that was it, basically. We let them score first, and then we just fucked around for a bit, and then won 3-1. It was just the way it was for ages, and it was hilarious. But last season, how many games have we played so far?
6.
6 games. So far. Okay, so last season,
15 points.
6 games. 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, and then 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first 7 games, we had 16 points. And we've already equaled that. We're 1 point away from that in, I think, one less game this season. And we've conceded way less and scored way more. So I think in comparison to last season that this is absolutely fucking nuts. And I think the system has an awful lot to do with it. I think it's much more calm, much more composed. It's not the heavy metal football that Klopp had, because I think that's kind of seen its day. And maybe just people find it boring. I don't. I absolutely love all of these clean sheets. I love a defensive masterclass that we don't concede a goal. It's beautiful. Jared Houllier said it once, that the less goals you concede, the less goals you have to score. That's the way that it's going to be, guys. Kill them with passes, death by 1,000 cuts. That's the way we're going to be going forward.
Houllier at the end, though, those teams were unwatchable, though. Those 4-4-2s.
I mean,
2 left backs, 2 right backs.
The philosophy was right. It's the execution, however, it left a lot to be desired.
Don't forget Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta are just copying Gerard Houlier's 4-4-2 and George Graham's 4-4-2 at Arsenal. 4 center backs, 4 midfielders, but 2 are full backs.
Pretty much. That's exactly what's going on. And anybody that tells me that
we are pomoing our way. We are pomoing our way to our title position of maximum opportunity.
Exactly. And if anybody tells me that Mikel Arteta is a good manager, I will see them outside, because he's shit. He is nothing more than David Moyes in a posh jumper. That's all he is. That is his coaching philosophy. The second you put pressure on that team, they sit back, and he relies on moments of individual brilliance to get him a victory. And only for Leicester, were Leicester against a more competent team, that they lose that game easily. And they nearly did lose that game. But we're going to move on to one of the next topics. And before we do that, just make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out on any of the content that we have. If you're currently watching over on X at the moment, we have just over 1,200 people watching at the moment. Please do make sure to jump over to our YouTube channel, hit like and subscribe, and make sure that you are synced in to make sure that you never miss out on anything. Yes, Rigo, Arteta is corny as the we won't start cursing like an Irishman on this channel as much as I'd love to. I think I'd make a lot of people blush. Lesadies mentioning one of our newest members has joined us. Slots football is entertaining in a different way. We're such nice attacking patterns together. There's been so many offensive sequences that have been put together that have just been utterly beautiful to watch, and some of them just haven't paid off, and I'm kind of like, if that goal went in, that would have been a goal of the season contender kind of a thing. It's very, very interesting. But we're going to move on to one of Daniel's favorite players, and that is the Lisan Al-Gaib in Ryan Gravenberch. And if he is making a name for himself to be possibly the player of the season, the player of the year, because he might need to build an extension onto his house to fit all of these man of the match performances in. Dan, before I get to you and all of your gushing over him, however, because me and you were in the same boat on this, I want to throw it to Jonathan as well. How do you feel about Gravenberch? Do you think it's a bit? Do you think the jury's out at the moment? It's only been 6, 7 games, 8 games. There's another 50 to go. If he keeps it up, do you think he's on track to be possibly player of the season?
I'm falling in love with Gravenberch, to be honest. I hope he's consistent, because that was his biggest problem last season. He could have a good game, have 5 bads, a good one, but now he is tearing through this league like it's butter. And I said in the summer, Gravenberch is one of the players that I'm most disappointed in after the season we bought him. And I didn't like to see him play. When he came on, he was like playing with 10 men. Did he start? Played with 10 men. He lost the ball. And now got a new manager, and it's like almost like watching Rodri when City won the treble. I'm not even joking. I'm so convinced if he stays consistent, he will be one of the reasons we will win one of the big trophies, and he will be maybe top 2, top 3 contenders to win Player of the Year in the league.
Yeah, I think he has all of the ability to win Player of the League.
But he have to stay consistent, and that's the most thing. I'm like, we haven't had the biggest opponents yet. He was good against Milan. He was good against United. But that's 2 big games. Yeah, when we go to the Emirates, when we go to Etihad, if it delivers the same quality, I will be sold directly.
Yeah. It's as you mentioned, it's consistency. He's had nearly 10 games of world-class form, and we kind of just need to see how that develops further for the rest of the league. And just a bit of breaking news. Porto are in advanced negotiations with Alan Varela to renew his contract after his transfer to Liverpool didn't happen. It wasn't happening. Porto and the player's agent are discussing a salary increase, but his contract will continue until 2028. Carter is going to be devastated.
Also, Anthony Gordon is extending his contract too. I know all of Carter's players are just not getting signed. I don't know how to break it to them.
All we got to do now is just wait for Marcus Rashford to get a contract extension and up on $400,000 a week.
We're not getting. Yeah, Mark Gahey's probably going to sign a contract next, and the super.
Oh, you mean that Crystal Palace super team, Dan? with 80 million pound Mark Gahey and 100 million pound Adam Morton, and then 70 million pound Eze. You mean that super team? The super team that's currently in 17th.
Oh yeah, the one Miguel Delaney went to war with you with for a Britzy
that they're bracing but not expecting, but still bracing for a bid, and I'm like, it's the same fucking thing, Miguel, you dope.
I didn't even know Miguel Delaney was Irish. I just thought he was.
I feel ashamed. I feel absolutely ashamed that man has any percentage of Irish in him. He's an idiot. He's an absolute idiot.
So okay. I agree with Jonathan's points, a lot of what he said with Ryan Gravenberch in terms of his consistency. I was actually doing I took 5 minutes during the games weekend to scroll back through, you'll appreciate this, all the Tacticos Twitters, such as Rash Chauhan and Invert the Wing and just some others, just to see what people have said about Ryan Gravenberch recently. First of all, anybody here that is going to follow this and understand I don't like the Tacticos Twitter nonsense because it's useless information, and anybody that's doing actual in-game analysis is not writing tweets with obscure Baroque things or writing articles for The Athletic like we will look at later today, or James Pierce or Paul Joyce. Regardless of what you think about them, people that actually write match reports are actually doing some type of analysis,
competent writing, and not just word vomit from a fucking source.
So I went back and Raj, I think it's Raj. I apologize to Raj Chauhan if he sees this. Raj has not written anything about Ryan Gravenberch since February of 2024, which is interesting considering I think he's a Liverpool fan. I actually don't even know at this point. And for me, I completely understand when people say where what Ryan last year was not what Klopp needed because of how Klopp was playing. So I completely agree with that in the sense that he was a talented player, but really always came down to it would always come down to system and approach. And like Jonathan mentioned, last year he was used very much as a 10 or kind of an aid, and Klopp really didn't give him a lot of in-game instruction other than go and be Ryan and we'll teach you how to press, which so was more of an introduction to the team than anything else. I think what we're seeing now is that we're seeing a Ryan Gravenberch that had a year under Klopp. It is now getting a role change under Slot, and it works so perfect for him because he already had the coaching and the coaching and the pressing by Klopp also being integrated into the team. And now he has a Dutch manager coming in saying, I know what you can do. I know I can turn you into. This is how we're going to change it. And now what we're seeing, if we're seeing everything that Ryan Gravenberch can bring, that you see the tactical intelligence, the on-the-ball ability, his passing, his dribbling, his ability to move through the lines. You're seeing all of that on top of all the defensive capabilities, which is what people were worried about last year. I wasn't worried so much because you can't really judge someone on defensive capabilities when they're at 10, because as a 10, your usual job is to screen or to make the ball move somewhere else. Your job's not try to win the ball immediately and make an attack, or not individually. You have to press as a team, not as an individual. He's not Bruno Fernandes. He's not running around with his head cut off like a chicken, getting red cards and such. What we've seen from Gravenberch, in my opinion, is that I think you're seeing why they rated him so highly, like Aurelien Tchouameni. He's on that Tchouameni trajectory where he was a raw player coming out of Bordeaux to Monaco. Monaco, he develops with another player. I know it's already mentioned he's developed very well with Alexis McAllister because they very much complement each other in terms of ability. But you're also seeing that defensive work on side of him. Like he won all of his duels, which is insane. He was 100% on his duel wins percentage. And his tackles. And that's crazy. And you're talking about a Wolves team where people were saying, we need Andre Trindade, and people were getting banned off Twitter for saying that FSG have committed financial crimes for not buying Andre Trindade from Fluminense or João Gomez, who I think are two good players and will do fine with Wolves. And I think Gary O'Neill will make that Wolves team decent again. But you can watch that game and say, if there's any one player you want to buy, it's probably Ryan Gravenberch and Alexis McAllister. Andre Trindade and João Gomez are just, I don't mean this in a condescending way. Yeah, they're fine. Like they're good. Like if you're Tottenham and you need a slightly better midfield than Basuma or an alternative to Basuma, yeah, go buy Andre Trindade. Or if you're Arsenal and you have all your midfielders injured, Marino, Odegaard, your left back injured, and you need to buy a midfielder to brush it up, yeah, João Gomez and Andre Trindade are fine, but they're fine. And fine doesn't win you titles. Like City spent all that money on Mateus Nunes from Wolves, who everyone thought we should just spend the earth and the moon from Sporting and from Wolves. And he was fine, and Pep's like, "You're out. You're not good enough for me." And I think that's kind of where we're at, where we imagine that all these players, because they don't play for Liverpool, are automatically better than the players that play at Liverpool, which is, I hate to say this, it's like we don't see them every day, and we're definitely not the analysts working for Mickey Edwards or
we don't have doctors in physics. Like,
no, we don't. I'm not saying we're not smart enough to like analyze players, but we're not at that level doing with that much data.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think what we're seeing from Ryan is just that finally someone putting faith in him and coaching him and actually making him better. Considering he went from Ten Hag to Tuchel, two coaches that, well, I think Ten Hag believes in him, but he never bought him, which is still hilarious to me that Ten Hag bought every other player. Bought every other player in Ajax except for the one that was good. And
he spends £200 million on ex-Ajax players, and he doesn't buy the one that was good. That's priceless.
And Thomas Tuchel and Julian Nagelsmann, both at Bayern, who bought him in and tried to coach him up, dealt with the realities of Bayern Munich, which is it's a madhouse over there in its own way. It's the Man United of the Bundesliga, except they actually win things, but that's because they destroy their other teams. But that's a whole other discussion for this side. Yeah. So I think we're very much seeing kind of that player finally get on that path and that trajectory. But like Jonathan mentioned, it's all about consistency. If Zubi was signed, who would be left out? I think they would have rotated between McAllister and Szoboszlai, so you probably would have seen more of like Zubimendi and Gravenberch, or like that more of a rotation. I think all Zubimendi would have done is made Endo a reserve player. I don't think anything really would have changed with their progression, except for the fact that Zubimendi would be getting, say, Endo's minutes right now.
I think Gravenberch wouldn't have gotten that starting position if Zubimendi would have come in.
Do you think so? Do you not think it would have been?
Or I think Szoboszlai would have been benched and Gravenberch.
I think it's between Szoboszlai being, because McAllister's not being benched. There's not a chance.
McAllister is the best he is the best out of them three, even though Gravenberch is stacking those man of the matches.
But it's what's amazing about it is McAllister, Van Dijk, and Alisson are putting in world-class performances, and they're flying under the radar, and nobody's mentioning a word about them. It's absolutely beautiful. Liverpool Truth Channel, don't forget to mention the net spend when we mention about how much Klopp has spent, because there's a reason he was able to spend 900 million, and that's because he probably sold about $1 billion. I think if you look at it, off the top of my head, I think if you look at it, I think we're actually in the red by about 200 million net spend over Klopp's entire tenure. And if you take a look at Man City as a comparison, their net spend of negative 800 million before, or 700 million before Pep, and then 800 million after Pep joined. That's essentially how much they've blown cash on. But just looking at everything here and seeing if there's anything in the comments. Having a look here. Yeah, but net spend isn't a stupid argument, because City have spent 1.4 billion euro more than they've sold. It's not a stupid argument. It's really not. Net spend is not a stupid argument whatsoever. If somebody, it's anybody that says that's the whole point. Net spend is the whole point of FFP and everything like that, and all the profit and sustainability. City have sold players 100%. They have. Fantastic and well done to them. City sell well now, but if you go back over a number of seasons, there have been transfer windows where City have spent 300 million quid and sold maybe 50. And if you go back through our transfer windows, there has never been a window where we've been 200 million in the red. And I think the closest we came to it was last summer, where we spent nearly, or not last summer, I can't even remember when the last time we were near 200 million in the red. But City have sold massive amount. I don't even know why we're even debating this. Like, City have financially doped for over a decade. Nearly 20 years, City have been doping their own team with money. It's not even it's not even debatable. Like you can't even argue that net spend is a silly argument, because it's not. It's literally the core emphasis of what profit sustainability and financial fair play rules are. It's literally that simple. Like, so it's just, sometimes you sell, sometimes you don't. No, I didn't want us to dope money. That's the entire point. I wanted us to. We were one of the only ones that were playing by the rules. Chelsea broke the rules. United have broke the rules. City have broke the rules. Arsenal are very close to breaking the rules as well, and we're the only club that really hasn't. Brighton haven't. Brentford haven't. As Rigo mentions, the FSG model works out in the long run, because actually we seem to be the only team that seems to be adhering to the fucking rules, and nobody else seems to be doing it. But that's a topic for a whole other stream at this point. We're going to move on to one of the last topics of today, and that is Ibrahima Konate. But before we do, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure all your notifications are on for all future streams and videos, so that you never miss out. If you're currently watching over on X at the moment, or Twitter at the moment, make sure that you have liked, subscribed, had the notifications on. Yes, Rigo, Ibu. Have your notifications on so that you never miss out. We've lots of great content that's there, so don't miss out on that. Essentially, Ibrahima Konate has kind of made himself, as Rigo mentions there in the comments, like another one with a point to prove. It's just one, like, I'm going to mention this once more. Net spend is not a dumb argument. It is the antithesis of how the clubs are supposed to be run. As I said, Liverpool have about a 200 million negative net spend. Man City, since they got taken over by the Saudis and the oil barons, or Abu Dhabi, or wherever the fuck they were taken over from, have a net spend of negative 1.4 billion. So they can't have been selling that many players if they're still 1.4 billion in the red. It is that simple. Net spend is the perfect argument, and there's a reason Man City are up on 130 fucking charges. But we'll go on to Ibrahima Konate, and Jonathan, I'll turn to yourself first with this. Oh, Jesus Christ. And he sold that much as well. Fuck me. Ibrahima Konate is one of the standouts in this season. He has been one of the best players so far this season. He's really taken himself up another level, Jonathan. And really, we're trying to wonder where it came from. Like, is it a change in system? Is it the fact that he has Van Dijk beside him that's just quietly putting in world-class performances week in, week out? Is it Ryan Gravenberch sat in front of him? Is it a protection from a double pivot? Or is it kind of just a perfect storm, an amalgamation of everything together? Ryan in front of him with McAllister, Virgil beside him, a fully strengthened back line with Robbo and Trent either side as well, Allison in goal, and just a slight tweak in a system that allows for more defensive stability. Is it all of them? Is it just one thing, or is it just Konate finally having his breakout?
He has always been very good. When we bought him, I always thought, now we're getting a not world class, but a very good defender besides Verge. Dejan Lovren also looked good, but besides Verge, but before Verge, he looked like Maguire, to be honest, before we got Van Dijk. I think it's a combination of all of them. He got benched for the last part of the season, last season, which made him maybe miss out on a starting spot in Euros, even though he was with the squad. And I think it helps that Trent have gotten much more stable defensively, much more better, and that Gravenberch has taken steps in that double pivot role. I just think he has something to prove, to be honest. And when the whole team plays together, Trent have gotten much better defensively, it seems. And McAllister don't have to do all the defensive work, or Endo. It's easier to be great. Yeah. And I don't know, because I think the whole defense have been really good this season. It's not been one standout player. I think Verge also have, funnily enough, taken a step, even though he was really, really good last year. They're just much more controlled, the whole team.
Yeah. It just seems to be, as you mentioned, just it's a multitude of different things that has allowed him to thrive. And Dan, as we said, it seems to be that like Alexi McAllister, Virgil van Dijk, and Alisson Becker just seem to be tipping away at world-class performances, and they're flying under the radar because you have Trent playing a wonder. Gravenberch seems to be stealing all the headlines, and they just seem to be flying unnoticed, so to speak. Do you think it's one specific thing that has allowed Konate to take another step forward in his development? Is it that he has a newfound fitness? Is it the fact of the players around him, the change in system, the double pivot in front of him that allows him to be a little bit more risk-taking, and those risks clearly paying off? What do you think it is, or is it any one singular thing?
Yes and no. I think the singular thing that has improved about Ibrahim Konate is his passing, which was the one thing that I believe that João Kwanzaa going into this year had more than him. And even Joe Gomez, I think his passing has always been better than Konate's at times. I think with the slight shape change, a move away from a 4-3-3 as Klopp looks at it versus how Arne Slot looks at it has helped Konate more. And now we've actually seen Konate get assists now. And I think that's been the big thing, is that Konate's passing has helped him get out of certain situations. Now, we saw some bad passes against Wolves that haven't been talked about as much because, he's been good. And he also had that mad 10 minutes where he was brilliant and then he was terrible, which is that's just kind of what Ibrahim Konate is at times, because he is still 25. Like, he's not the finished product by any stretch of the imagination as a defender. I also think another thing that Slot has done that Jurgen Klopp didn't, and I think it's more of a reflection of Klopp's anxiety with Konate's injury history, is that Klopp would keep Konate back and not use him until he got in, but he would use him and get injured, and he would essentially play him out of form, or he would protect him out of form, so to speak. So he would hold him back for certain games, but then he would never actually use him for games. And I think that didn't help Konate's development at all. So looking now, like we're 7 games into the season, or 7 games total in the season, he has 7 games, 2 goals. Last year, he ended up getting 37 games all competition, but we would say that he didn't really have the best time. And 22-23 had 24, and then his first season he had 29 total games. So his appearances have gone up every year, his total appearances for the team, even though we like to say Konate is injury prone. So I think now Slot's very much just backing him and riding his wave of form, so to speak, more than Jurgen did at the time. And I think that's also just because Jarrell kind of came up and was just consistent. He was there. And I think that speaks to more that Kwanzaa's arrival and performance has forced Konate to raise his game a lot more. And I think he's just benefited from that good environment, that very good environment that Klopp brought in for him, and then Slot's inherited. And it's made a few tweaks, and he has his own ideas. And I think that's allowed Konate to just improve in ways that, I think I didn't expect his passing to get so much better. I thought it would get better, but I wasn't expecting to get as good as it has. And I think for me, that's been the most impressive, surprising thing. And if you want to summarize what Konate has done that has made him so much better, it just comes down to that.
Yeah, the passing has helped, and I think he's playing with a little bit more freedom. It's just one of them that it's very interesting. And speaking of our centre backs, as Jamie has mentioned here, Liverpool are one of the clubs that have expressed an interest in Palmeiras. Excuse me, jeez, I'm all over the place today. Centre back Vitor Reyes, who is a 18-year-old, just above about 6'1", touching 6'2", 18-year-old centre back that plays for Palmeiras, who is on the radar of many teams: Real Madrid, Chelsea, Man United, Barcelona, us, Arsenal. Seems it will probably be one of the next big things, and I think he could be one that will come in and have a look at it. For the last 10 minutes, we'll have a bit of a chat about him and maybe where we see some signings take place in January. Jonathan, I'll throw it over to you first. Where are let's say we hit January and nobody's injured. Where should our focus be on? Is it still? Do you still think we should go? Should we go back in for a Zubamendi? Should we focus on somebody like an Inacio? Dan is going to shake his head. Should we go for somebody like Castello Luqueba from Leipzig? Is there somebody else on the radar that might pop up in a little bit? Do we go for a Mark Gahey, the £80 million wonder boy that Dan's going to shake his head again? Do we even attempt to go for somebody like a Levi Colwill if Chelsea are possibly in the shit financially with the Club World Cup not getting the funding that they thought it was? There's a multitude of different options we could really take from this, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. I'm still convinced we actually need to look out for a new left back because Robertson is aging and Kostas is a good backup, but there's no starter.
Yeah.
I would love another centre back just because we have 4. I forgot about Joe Gomez, but Gomez is going to go next summer. I'm pretty sure. If it is an 6 available, not maybe a starting 6, we could go for a 6 as well, just so we can rotate more between Gravenberch and McAllister, so we don't get that injury. Just have to see. We weren't in for a right wing this summer, and we got Federico Chiesa. It's almost impossible to predict this club. I hope they maybe bring in that wonder kid from Brazil. Left back, that's my priority, I think.
Yeah.
We have to buy left back.
I completely agree. I can see why, obviously, as Dan mentioned earlier on in the stream, we're a little bit worried about, can Robbo's legs keep up for the season? If they can, fantastic. But if they go, it's a bit of a drop, and then you have Joe Gomez then as a backup there, and you essentially lose a backup centre back, and you're kind of like, okay, well, Dan, is it a left back or a left-footed centre back that can kind of play both positions? The like of an Inacio, the like of a Luqueba, the like of a Bastoni that we see there in the comments. Is that the type of player that we're going to go for, or how is it? I can get his graph, actually. Yeah, if you want to chat away there, Dan, I'll pull up his graph because I have it here.
Yeah, I mean, I get what Jonathan is saying with like looking at a new left back in the January window. I think buying fullbacks in January is always a bit of a tricky situation. I think that's why the links to Reyes, the highly rated Vitor Reyes, yeah, Vitor Reyes. There we go. Vitor Reis, because it's a Brazilian Portuguese, so they pronounce the R a little bit different. But Vitor Reis is he's only played 8 games, so you're looking at Lenny Euro this time last year. He does fit that kind of profile, someone who is young, developing, that you can get in get in at a very young age, and someone you can essentially develop. I think part of that is to get around the issue of homegrown status, because if they buy him and he's registered at a very young age, as long as he's registered for 2 years before the age of 21, he is considered a homegrown player. So I think that's what they're going to be looking at in terms of deals, either to be done in January or to do in the summer. If no one's injured, I just don't think they buy anybody. I know we've seen links with like Martin Zubamendi and potentially getting him, and that could happen because Real Sociedad are terrible right now. I mean, they were always kind of walking a fine line, a very defensive team that very much overperformed. And they sold Marino to Arsenal, and Zubimendi was on the cusp of going before the mountains dragged him into a corner and gave him the world. Those are some mountains, though, in San Sebastian. I don't know if Rigo's seen them or anybody else has seen them before, but listen, Asturias must be not Asturias, it's Basque. The Basque region must be one of the most beautiful regions in the world to keep a man from the pop world in Liverpool city center. I don't know who they can buy. I do disagree with Jonathan.
You see some mountains in Pop World, I'll tell you that.
I know.
Snowy peaks.
I do disagree with Jonathan about the Chiesa point he made, and that he didn't see that coming. They were looking for a forward. We know that from most of the reports. It went from Gordon to nobody, and I think Chiesa was one of those that kind of cropped up. And we were talking about right winger all summer of like, should you go get a Jonathan Bakayoko? They were looking at Kubo, different profiles of right wingers / forwards in general, but they were definitely looking at one from the beginning of the summer. I just think we didn't expect Chiesa because it just felt like a deal.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. No. I go what you mean, Jonathan.
Mm.
I think no one expected Chiesa's name to finally go through, but I think that just shows where the good parts of what Michael Edwards does in that sort of Fenway Sports Group approach to transfers, where the Richard Hughes idea of an opportunistic signing, because that is an opportunistic signing, and Chiesa already has a bias, and he already has a bias.
He has an injury history. In quotations, he has an injury history. That's his defect, and so you can get an £80 million player for £12 million.
Yeah,
that's
so yeah, absolutely. And I think with Chiesa getting a bicycle kick assist essentially in his first game, I think there's just going to be more things to come. And again, if the worst thing that Chiesa is, he's just Sheridan Shaqiri, but Italian and not Swiss / Kosovo, I think that's perfectly fine for what we paid for him. And he's obviously faster than Shaqiri was. Not as big as his calves are, but it's
it's just
pacey.
built.
I know. It's actually, so this graph is actually very interesting. So you have Konate, Rios, and Van Dijk
this season so far.
Yeah, this season. I think one thing to point out here is that that progressive passing and that forward passing is the most important part for what we want from a center back, because the win dual percentage and progress in the defensive action, Van Dijk's low because they don't go after him that much. That's why Konate's is higher. And the fact that Konate does more carrying, I think, is more of where he's at on the pitch versus Van Dijk can't carry. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, not at all. So what the way that it was explained to me by the data MB analyst is that it's essentially what you say. It's how much time they spend defending. This defensive actions is how much time they actually spend defending. So it'll be like how much time they go to ground, and teams that have a higher percentage of possession actually would have defenders that are lower down here, and it makes them look like they're bad defenders, but it's not. It's like Van Dijk will win his aerial duels and he'll win the ball before the attacker is in a position enough to make him have to go to ground, because he's that good. He pre-defends is probably the best way to describe it. That's the way that they describe those words, those particular numbers to me. And just for you, Dan, I have this here for you, and I'm going to show you this. So this is Ryan Gravenberch last season. Where are we? Grav, and we're going to go 23-24. This is Ryan Gravenberch last season. We're going to now take a look at Ryan Gravenberch this season. That is a monstrous change. That is genuinely a monstrous change. If you want to take a look at Rodri last season, and the problem is now I'm going to have to find him here. If you look for Man City, where are we? Liverpool, Rodriguez. No, that's the Uruguayan one. He's here somewhere. I spotted him. Rodri. That's Rodri. Now it's 22-23, but we'll throw him in again. Where are we looking? Just looking for Man City. I don't see them there. Manchester City, 23-24. That's Rodri last season. And we're just going to take out Ryan Gravenberch last season. That's Rodri last season. That's terrifying that's a 22-year-old kid that's matching Rodri so far this season, albeit a small sample size.
And I do think it's important. I do think it's important to point out that both Rodri plays in a double pivot, and he has played a double pivot since the title, the COVID title.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that team, he's essentially playing next to either Bernardo Silva or Ilkay Gundogan, insert Man City midfielder here. Even Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden has played next to him. Rodri does not play as a lone six. I think that's one of the myths of this Man City team that has permeated throughout the title discourse since 2019. Fernandinho used to play as a lone six because he would either split the center backs or have the fullbacks invert to create passing lanes. But the reason Pep changed the system was because Rodri is not a good lone six. And the reason he's not a good lone six is that his passing and his defending are good or solid. But as you can see here, his defensive actions are low. Rodri's best attributes are his forward playing attributes. You only want him defending when he has to play, when he has to defend. And that's why you have someone like a Gundogan or Bernardo Silva that does all the dirty work for him. And also, Ugarte. Listen, I'm just going to say it right now. I thought Ugarte was fine, but I think you also see why you don't spend 65 million pounds on Manuel Ugarte, because you're just getting fine. You're getting Uruguayan Wataru Endo. And I don't think you need Uruguayan Wataru Endo, even if he's like slightly faster. Like you could just.
But that's all he's done is doing. All he's done is doing what Conor Gallagher is doing. That's literally it. United have spent a non-homegrown spot on Uruguayan Conor Gallagher and spent 65 million on it too. But it's just a mad one. But yeah, that's Ryan Gravenberch and how he's performing and projected to perform so far this season, which is madness. But I'm going to stop sharing now, and we're going to jump back into our little stream here, and we're going to finish up for the day.
I do want to say that on the left center back, left back situation, so this is where I'm conflicted on, because I don't know if they rate Owen Beck or Chambers, because if they rate Beck or Chambers, those should be the next ones to step up. I'm assuming they're going to sell Simicast or Robertson eventually. One of those has to make the step up, and I think it'll be Simicast they sell. And if they rate either one of them, I think they'll be good left backs in a slot system. I think Beck or Chambers would be great, especially if Bradley has shown that he can be pretty solid. As terms of the left center back replacing Van Dijk, there is no one. So you have to, where you're going to cut your cloth. Do you want an Ignacio who plays as a 3 that's a better passer, but is not maybe as defensively sound? Or do you want a Luque who's, again, small, a little bit of ball carrier, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know who the left center back is, my point.
It's a hard profile to pick, realistically.
It's Juro Kwanzaa. Just put Juro Kwanzaa there, or Joe Gomez, or Ibrahim Konate. Because you give me options and none of them jump off the page. Lenny Euro's whole thing was that he was young and he was fast, and that's pretty much all Lenny Euro had in his.
Until he decided to have a metatarsal problem that Man United ignored and still spent 70 million euro on him.
Exactly. I'll let you round up.
Changing things. Changing nothing. I'll answer this final question and then we'll finish up for the season. Will more international players retire from national teams for less matches? Yes. Very simple answer is yes. Yes, they will. Because the Club World Cup is going to add on to it, which is stupid. Not even there's been no TV bids on it, which is hilarious. And Chelsea are banking on that money, and they're expecting about 50 million from it. If no decent TV deal comes in from it, they're getting shafted. And especially if they miss out on European spots this season, which I think they will be, despite their strong start, they will get found out. But we are going to leave it there, guys, for today. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Just under 2,000 people watching us. From myself, Dan, and Jonathan, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you guys tomorrow for our pre-match review of Liverpool's first Anfield game of the Europa League, not Europa League, that was last season. UEFA Champions League back at Anfield again. UCL Knights are back. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you again tomorrow.